We're live. Um, Miles is not with me today, but we've missed a couple Fridays, the last couple Fridays. And so I am just jumping on to make sure that we are still here for you on Fridays, making sure that we answer any questions. These are kind of meant to be community hours. I'm pulling up a second screen over here so I can see your questions more clearly than on my monitor here. Happy Friday, everyone. It's been a good week. Bookmobile week was a fun week. I'm fired up about it. All right, I've got the chat pulled up on the side. Hey, Patty, Sam. Hey, Rainey. Hey, Angelina. Thank you, everyone, for being here. As people file in, I figure I'll talk about one thing that's been on my mind, and then we can do some Q&A. I've mentioned this a couple times on Defiance Daily. We are starting to shift modes strategically, not totally, but we've talked a lot this year about the Too Big to Raid coalition and the Protect the Vote as like our core focus of what needs to be built to fight back against authoritarianism. And a lot of the pro democracy world, to be fair, is also focusing on that. I think it's been a very obvious strategy to invest in turnout and protecting the vote. But we're starting to think a lot more about a third area of focus, which I've mentioned before. We're calling Stop the Real Steal for now. It can have a better name later, but right now we're calling Stop the Real Steal. And that is basically trying to stop pretending like we don't know what's going to take place just because it's horrific and scary. You know, the effort to undermine our election. It increasingly looks like we are going to have at least some victories. Probably going to take back the House, maybe take back the Senate. And we know Trump can't withstand, he mentally can't absorb a loss. He is going to dispute it. So I want to talk through a couple ways that I'm anticipating. Um, I shouldn't say like these are all for sure. Well, I'm anticipating these may happen. The only one that is for sure is the narrative because it's already happening. Trump's already socializing. The system is broken. Cities can't be trusted. The count is rigged. That bizarre press conference he had with about China a week ago or so ago. He's already said that Republicans ought to nationalize voting. He told reporters that Republicans should take over the voting in about 15 places and named Detroit, Philadelphia, and Atlanta. He said he wants to end mail ballots and get rid of voting machines. So this is already happening. He is already laying the groundwork for the narrative that the election is rigged, it's fake, etc. We know that's going to happen. Another thing he's been talking about openly and trying to get done is shrinking who gets a ballot. In March, Trump signed an executive order to build a federal citizen list and have the Postal Service carry ballots only for people on approved lists. He described it as foolproof. A federal court declared the core of it unconstitutional. The First Circuit refused to let it take effect. And even this week, the administration asked the Supreme Court to clear the way for it, though still. So he's trying to reduce who gets a ballot in the first place. Let's talk about getting to the ballots before they're counted. FBI agents entered a Fulton County election facility and took ballots from 2020 with the Director of National Intelligence present. You remember that bizarre picture of Tulsi Gabbard at the location. She had already been involved in seizing voting machines in Puerto Rico earlier in the year. There was also a draft executive order in 2020 made public later that would have the defense secretary seize voting machines around the country. VoteBeat, they're like someone who does surveys of like professionals in the space, surveyed 37 election experts this spring. A majority expecting an attempt to seize voting equipment or ballots this cycle. Let's talk about intimidation. Steve Bannon floated ICE agents around polling places, then floated calling up the 82nd and 101st Airborne under the Insurrection Act. When Trump was asked in May about sending the Guard or ICE to the polls, he said he would do anything necessary to make sure we have honest elections. So on this front, the law is clear. And this is where like the naivety comes in, because I often hear in the pro-democracy space, like, well, the law says X. Okay. This guy has shown over and over again he's willing to break the law. So, but the law is clear on this. Armed federal forces at polling places are banned. Intimidating a voter is a federal crime. Now, the Supreme Court let stand a ruling that the Chicago Guard deployment was illegal and the troops were withdrawn. But the point of the threat other than if they're actually able to do it, is what it does to people before election day. We've talked about this. It is already voter intimidation to let people think there might be armed military members, essentially, at polling locations, especially if you're a demographic that's already under threat. Thanks, Richard, for the nice haircut compliment. This I go in like 3-month cycles with the haircut. I get it really short, and then it gives me, bandwidth and time to let it grow out for a while, because dad life basically has just me do this and then dad stuff, and that's the end of it. All right, so let's talk about Congress refusing to certify House judges. The House judges its own elections under the Federal Contested Elections Act. A losing candidate can contest the result, and the House decides. Speaker Johnson previously organized 138 House Republicans to dispute the 2020 outcome, which was, as we've learned through all of the court rulings, 60 plus court rulings, was indisputable. If the House comes down to 2 or 3 seats, a handful of close races could get left unresolved into January. Let's talk about emergency powers. We've talked about this a lot. And then there's this version where an emergency gets declared over alleged foreign interference. Like, yeah, I think when we were like, what the hell is the point of that press conference where he talked about Chinese interference? And really wasn't interference. It was theft of voter rolls. It was just like theft of data, essentially. But he's trying to lay the groundwork that there's an emergency. He can't cancel the election, but no court has come close to giving him that. But the attempt itself creates enough fog to muddy the results. And election, there's a lot of things he can do with emergency powers that you can't do in normal times. So I just wanted to go over that to say, I have various levels of confidence those things are going to happen, from 100% on the narrative stuff. Like, he is going to say certain races were rigged for sure, and descending from there. And we need to be prepped for it. And so I spend my time, when I'm not talking to you all, mostly talking to pro-democracy leaders and other people in the space, and thinking about things that can be built either by, best athlete organization, or we can stand it up with the support of other organizations. We did it with the fight against federal overreach. We did it with the bookmobile. We continue, we did it with State of the Swamp. So we continue to try to build infrastructure when it's not there. And this is a lot of stuff that's either new infrastructure, or it's like a new campaign led by an organization, because we're kind of in uncharted territory. And so, so let me go through some of the things that I've been talking about with people, so you can kind of understand what those conversations look like, because I'm not always talking to you all about it. Counter messaging. I've been working on building a right-wing influencer network that has been recently, or formerly, more kind of more in the past, scorned by Trump, that has his audience that is prepared on election day to get the truth out about the election and make sure that the Trump voters see over and over again that what the truth is. And with the hopes of, his hope is firing up his base, maybe creating another January 6th type situation. I want to instill a lot more doubt and a lot more belief around like eventual accountability if you get wrapped up into his bullshit. And so that's in its beginning stages, but there's some like already big names that have been recruited to it. Unfortunately, this is the type of thing that can never be really public. Like, I can't say who's in it, who's receiving our information. Like, it would undermine the entire effort if people thought, like, these guys are getting fed info from, left-wing Trump antagonists or whatnot. So it's one of those things that I really wish could be a defiance mission. But I just want you to know it's out there, and we're working on it, and we're trying to make sure that any bullshit that he's trying to run with come election day and the days immediately following it is countered in the moment, and we're not naive and playing catch up. Running scenarios. So everything I just laid out to you, I am also talking to the pro-democracy movement writ large about red teaming. If you don't know what red teaming or wargaming is, it's just going through scenarios, but with a lot of the major players at the table. Right. And saying, look, what happens if he does seize ballots in some states? What's everyone doing? And everyone has a different role. The legal teams have a different role. The community organizers have a different role. And so we are just trying to make sure that the ecosystem, let's call it the ecosystem, is getting together on a regular basis, running these through these scenarios and know what they're doing in the moment. Because oftentimes, even though this is like a slow motion car crash, this whole thing's been a slow motion car crash. Um, Still, when the moment happens, people don't know exactly what we're doing. The great thing is, I think, unlike even 2020 and 2016 before that, we do have civic infrastructure, civilian civic infrastructure to lean on to play roles in this moment. It's just about organizing them effectively. So I don't know if that's going to be a defiance mission or not. Again, that's like a little bit questionable how like public the actual effort should be and who's running it, et cetera. But it is being done. We're going to spend time on it. Um, I just want you all to know that too. Like on top of the stuff you're all seeing, we're spending a lot of time. We're essentially pseudo board members to a lot of our grantees. We're connecting people all over the place so they can team up and support each other in what they're doing because there's not that many groups like us that are funding such a wide variety of groups and strategies, and so we are playing a meaningful role in mobilizing and connecting this space. So that's running scenarios. Training our own members. There's a group called Freedom Trainers I've been talking to a lot, and they do really cool protect the vote, know your rights training. I'd love to on an upcoming week make that a mission where like the whole mission is actually you all understanding exactly what that means. We say poll watching. I don't think how many people know exactly what that means. I don't know exactly what that means, if I'm being frank. So, like, I want to make sure like our whole community knows exactly what that means and how to do it effectively. And so, we're going to do some training for you all and the folks that are here to learn about how to be a part of that resistance and protection on that day. Um, Mass economic boycotts. We've sponsored a couple of these already. We have some practice with this. We were funders of We Ain't Buying It, which was very early on in Defiance. I think it was our first grantee. I think it was first week in November. We funded We Ain't Buying It. And May Day, which was more recently, which was Labor Day, was another boycott. I think a couple things are important here. One, it's one of the best ways for us to withdraw support and basically refuse to be and to be ungovernable in certain ways, especially depending on what you boycott. But also, if you get ahead of it and you're signaling that you're going to do it, you can also coerce powerful people and powerful companies to get on your side if they know there's an economic loss coming. And that's something we haven't done yet. We've done quick boycotts. Like Scott Galloway was the other one. Sorry, resist and unsubscribe was the other boycott that we supported. Um, but we really haven't done it in a way yet where we're saying this is going to happen. Be on the right side of history. Make sure you dispute the election outcome. If and be a part of our team and play the role that we're asking you to play, or there's going to be hundreds of millions or billions of dollars in lost economic value for you and your company. So thinking of that, that's like kind of more in the ideation stage. I talked to a couple organizers yesterday about how to make that so. Um, Mask and ID laws. FAFO, which you all helped create, Fight Against Federal Overreach, is DAs prosecuting ICE agents for state crimes. One of the hardest parts of that prosecution is understanding who to prosecute. Yeah, we got lucky in the Renee Good killing. There were so many cameras, and the guy was unmasked for pieces of it, and we were able to identify them. Um, that's not always the case, as we've seen in Houston. Some other places, it's been very hard to track down who's doing what, and it has two effects. One, prosecution is hard, but even the ability to deter violence is reduced if they think they can be hidden and therefore be immune. And so we are working on a project now to pass mask and ID laws in swing states to make sure that they're to kind of it's almost a to partner with the FAFO effort to make sure the DAs are able to know who they can prosecute, and we can intimidate ICE agents from behaving badly. So when they when they are in fact deployed to the polls, if that does happen, they're deployed with their ID, with their face, and at much greater personal risk. And we think that could have a meaningful impact on voter intimidation. Along those lines, voter intimidating the foot soldiers. Really important. And so ICE is one of the foot soldiers, but there's a whole army of bureaucrats across all the departments that are carrying out really damaging efforts to our democracy and to our constitution. And I think most of them think they are above being held accountable or maybe below being held accountable. Even if Trump and Miller are eventually held accountable, they think maybe they won't be, either they were just following orders. And so efforts that dispute the notion or essentially like, get rid of the notion that they are above accountability or is really, really critical. And can stop a lot of bad behavior. And even maybe, if people are thinking maybe they already overstepped that line already, catalyze a lot more whistleblowing, get a lot more information out, and make sure that we're able to get ahead of the bad behavior of this administration. So I didn't want this whole, coffee. I have my coffee here, this Friday coffee, to be about that. But I wanted to just give you a heads up on kind of what's going on behind the scenes, how we're thinking about it, that we're not being naive about this upcoming threat here, and we're really thinking creatively about how to get ahead of it for you all, and for all of us, but not just for you all. But all great. That was enough of a monologue. I'll take some questions if you guys have any. I want to try to make these Friday coffees more consistent. So, even if Miles is out of pocket, I'll try to do these one on one from now on. Jet Skipper, thank you for proactive realism. Yeah, for sure, man. Look, I'm not like totally native to the Pacific space. So I don't feel totally, I've always been very cynical of our institutions. I'll just say that. Always been very cynical of our institutions. And so I think I've never had this idea that they were either completely on our side or there to bail us out. Coming from social justice, the FBI is like one of the big bads in social justice, right? They're certainly, behaving poorly now, but they also straight up killed Fred Hampton, tried to get Martin Luther King to kill himself. Like they've been bad at different times in history. Our federal government's been a big bad at different times in history, and state governments certainly have. So I bring about like a decent amount of cynicism on how much we can trust our institutions versus how much we have to force our institutions to be on our side of history. Um, where are the progressive Democratic billionaires? Why aren't they helping us? Some are, but a lot stepped away. Like I would say a lot were into, and some are coming back now. I think like we've all, especially like the people in Minneapolis and the general broader resistance has shown it is safe to resist. But like we've mentioned this a few times, 2025 was the year where the elites kind of stepped away and then everyday people stepped up in that void. And now the everyday people have shown, hey, like, you don't get thrown right into a gulag. And so now we see like celebrities speaking out again, and we see some philanthropists coming back. But a lot of the elites were ducking for cover. I was talking to a friend today, and we were saying like, apparently, fuck you money is not a thing. We thought fuck you money was a thing. Apparently, it's not a thing, and so we're working on reaching out to some of them now. Actually, we're talking to a few philanthropists about supporting some marketing money, essentially, to get the word out about Defiance and to have more people powered, a larger people powered movement. It's nice to be in the position we are now, in the position you're allowing us to be in, which is not, please, we want to survive. What should our agenda be? But like, we have a movement. We're leading a movement. Would you like to grow the movement? You're not going to set the table for our agenda. You're not going to be a, core partner that tells us what to do in some way, like many nonprofits have had to do over the years. But if you want to be a part of helping grow this, please do. We don't have an issue with that. We just always want to be people powered, beholden to everyday people, not to billionaires. But a lot of them are sitting it out. I think increasingly the conversation has changed a little bit. Sorry for everyone just tuning in. I'm talking about the question from Christy H, who said, "Where are the progressive Democratic billionaires? Why aren't they helping us?" Um, it is easier for a billionaire to step into the fight for gay rights, for racial justice, um, some of the identity politics things, environmental rights, which a lot of wealthy people have invested in. Um, the conversation has shifted though in this country, and the conversation is now about corruption. Right? Should there be PACs? What about Citizens United? Should the rich influence any of this? Right? about labor power and labor strength. These are things that, like, where the alliance with the super wealthy starts to break a little bit. They're not quite as fanatical about organized labor. They're not as fanatical about not having super PACs of their own. And so this has been like an area of growth for me. Really, I got into this work basically looking at what Milton Friedman and the Koch brothers did on the right and thinking I could build the infrastructure to counter that. And I was okay at it. I had a pretty large celebrity organizer group. I had a very large donor network that raised $250 million. Um, I teamed up with elites on lots of things, but I felt like I was running into a little bit of a ceiling, if I'm being honest, on how far they would take the anti-corruption stuff and how far they would take the labor power stuff. And I felt like that was, if I was looking at the Trump movement authentically and not trying to write it all off as, racism, sexism, which is certainly a part of this. I know some of you have heard me say this before. If I was looking at it authentically, I would say a big reason why people migrate away from either political party is because of corruption, is because while the Democrats are maybe pro minimum wage here, they oftentimes are running companies on the coast that use foreign labor or automate or automated labor. And so it's kind of a pseudo stance sometimes in like how with like everyday people they are. Sure, they want to see the minimum wage go up to $15, but also they're quick to hire engineers in Romania. A lot of the tech companies are completely, move their IP to Ireland where they don't get taxed. And so I think people have sniffed that out. I think that people have sniffed out that it's kind of bullshit. Some of the stances, and it doesn't resolve the bigger issues we have. Wealth cap. And this is where Miles and I will probably completely disagree. I think a wealth cap is necessary, not because of inequality as like the animating. I think inequality is a fucking bad thing, but I don't think it's the core reason why we need to pass it. I think we need to pass it because literally democracy can't survive with individuals who can write $100 million check without thinking about it, as Musk can now. It's 0.001% of his net worth, and completely have like a massive influence on our institutions and who emerges from them. And so you're not gonna have a lot of billionaire alignment with wealth cap. The wealth cap as like one of your priorities. You don't have none. I was surprised that you don't have none. Like you have some folks who understand it and are happy to disempower themselves. And so like any scapegoat, it's never they're all evil. But you're not going to draw your power from there. And you've seen because both groups are beholden to wealthy donors, you've seen a deprioritization of things like that, right? And so, um, anyway, so that's one of the conclusions I've come to. That's why I helped Miles start Defiance, which is a totally people powered organization. It can take risks they don't want to take. It can uplift strategies that they wouldn't otherwise uplift, and we just need a lot more. Defiance needs to get a lot bigger, and we need a lot more infrastructure like Defiance, that speaks to different people and their needs. A lot of it, Defiance is political in nature. I was talking to someone about this the other day, which is great. There's some people who are very politically engaged, and I think what we're trying to do is help those politically engaged people do more instead of be outraged more. It's like let's be outraged less, and let's have a forward-looking posture on what's going to happen and be effective in how we respond to the moment. And like, let's not get bogged down with just drama and horror and trauma and all those things. So that's useful. But a lot of the infrastructure that's been like really successful, the time that we've had really meaningful advancements in society, people have been parts of groups that were supportive of their life broadly, whether that's unions or church groups or mutual aid networks. And so a lot of that infrastructure needs to be built up and scaled. We need a lot more civic engagement on the local level. That ends up being more practical in people's lives, and the groups are formed more organically. Indivisible's done a good job of providing a platform to allow that to happen. But like as I mentioned, there's kind of more kind of practical, pragmatic groups out there that are helping people with just their day to day life and then happen to be civically organizing them. And that's really important as we think about getting out of this. Let me go through the comments. Sorry, that was another long monologue after I agreed to answer questions. But tax billionaires and their corporations pay fair share, not unreasonable, says Sunny. I mean, I think it even goes beyond that. Like, what is our social contract with these people now? For a while, for a while, it was, hey, let us build companies and we're going to employ a lot of people and provide careers when we build companies and amass wealth. That's not happening anymore. NVIDIA is the largest company in the world, 5 trillion, or they were. I think Apple just passed them again. Employs 30,000 people. You know, like what are we getting out of this relationship? It's not the 1920s anymore, you know, where it's we're building skyscrapers and car companies and and like literally all of that takes a lot of people. It just takes a lot of people to build them and takes a lot of people to finish them, takes a lot of people to sell them. Even Walmart, which was, you know, in some ways a great displacer of employees, employs a shit ton of people. They're the largest employer in America, or they were for some time. I believe they still are at like 2.5 million people. Um, that's not necessarily how these new companies are built, how these winners function in this tech age. And so I, I'm not sure like that whole relationship needs to be reexamined. What we get out of the success of these companies, other than good products, you know, I like some of the products that come out of it, uh, and but other than that, like it's the relationship has totally changed. And so there needs to be a conversation over there. Like, what is our relationship with these companies? What value are we getting from their growth? Like for a while, we used them as our social safety net. Employment in the market was out of was our social safety net, and that's just not the case anymore. And them having more money than God, and then taking that money to invest in stock buybacks to increase their money while they have capital gains so they don't get taxed. There's like all this fucking bullshit that's going on that has nothing to do with improving the lives of everyday people. And our hand has been off the wheel for some time. Um, Chris McKinney says you and Miles should partner with Ro Khanna and Thomas Massey. You guys would be a double power couple. I like that. Yeah, they've got a similar vibe going over there, Thomas Massey and Ro Khanna. I mean, we'll see what happens with Thomas Massey. I kind of love a like unchained Thomas Massey just just going for it. And so maybe we can get him to drive the bookmobile. Maybe we can get both of them to drive the bookmobile. I think it'd be fucking great ahead of midterms if they were going around the country like a buddy cop movie. You know, I mean, honestly, that might be a better documentary than the Unfit Two stuff that we've been doing. It's just them as a buddy cop group going through the swing states in the South, talking about the files with all the files in tow would be fantastic. Um, Walmart is a cancer on society, says Chris McKinney. Amazon's just as bad as Walmart. Walmart used to donate to the Heritage Foundation. Yeah, yeah. And Walmart wasn't a good guy. I for sure. Walmart really, Amazon saved Walmart's reputation because Walmart was the big bad before Amazon. I was just saying that at least there used to be a real thing that when a business scaled, it would have to employ a lot of people. Walmart was a stage on our decline where they destroyed ownership of businesses. They became the owner and everyone became a, you know, minimum wage employee because they were undercutting everyone on price. But then now there's, I think, an even worse stage we stepped into, which they're not even bothering employing anyone. You know, the Amazons of the world don't even fucking employ anyone. So not no one. Amazon employs a decent amount of people in their warehouses and stuff, but less and less so. They're relying on less people and they're creating less careers and more just minimum minimum wage jobs essentially. Um, Kentucky in here been awesome to watch. Massey. Sorry for Mitch, says Tim Pierce. Tim Pierce. Oh, it's my good buddy Tim Pierce. What's happening, Tim? It's nice to see you here. Yeah, and my buddy Charles Booker, who we just had on the show, just emerged as the Democratic nominee for the Senate over there. Charles Booker is amazing leader, has been a community organizer for some time before becoming a candidate himself. And really has been fighting for the people of Kentucky. So if you don't know about him, check him out. He's amazing. And yeah, maybe it'll be a Booker Massey ticket, depending on what happens with Mitch McConnell here. Who knows what's going on? Tim, if you have any inside info down in Kentucky, if you guys have heard the word about Mitch, we're all trying to figure out what's happening next over there. Um, Let me look at that. Sonny says unionize. Big corporations hire union busters, law firms to stop unions, like Starbucks and Trader Joe's, while CEOs and boards make record profits to buy another yacht. The fuck is up with buying another yacht? What does that do? Here's the thing that's like so frustrating about all of this is the whole capitalism is eating its tail. Like at what now mostly what wealthy people are doing are buying things to stay away from society writ large because society writ large is getting worse. It's like your greed is forcing you to put your kids in private school. Your greed is forcing you to build security systems around your property. Your greed is forcing you to have increasingly fewer neighborhoods you would consider living in. And eventually it's going to eat its tail, and no one's going to have any money to buy any of this fucking stuff. And so I don't get what the end game is here. They're not. One thing that drives me crazy is like a conspiracy, like the Illuminati and like all these rich people are colluding. George Carlin had a great bit on this where he said they don't need to collude when they have like aligned incentives. I mean, I'm making it not funny, but that's really what's going on. But it's just such a clear path to a darker day for everyone. And Christy H says, don't they all have bunkers or islands somewhere? Yeah, but Chrissy, I've told them to their face because I've met people who are building bunkers. I'm like, unless you're also a fucking, you plan on like having a militia or you are a militia, you're building someone else's bunker. That's not going to be your. If it's if the world gets to a place where there's bunkers that are needed, there's also going to be organized groups that are in the business of taking bunkers. So that's not their bunker. It's so short sighted. It's so short sighted. It's ridiculous. Uh, Anyways. Oh, so I'm right as I take a big breath. So he says, "Love your straight talk. The times you get emotional shows your heart, pure motives." Thanks, Sonny. I appreciate it. I feel very passionately about all this. This is my end game. This is almost a side quest for me, if I'm being honest. My end game is just to try to create a society where people experience freedom like I experience freedom, where people have a level of safety that they can operate from, a level of guarantees. I should just say it's probably easier to conceive of guarantees. Everyone is guaranteed everything they need to survive so they can operate at a level of Maslow's hierarchy that makes them more functional, more productive, less harmful. That's eventually where I'm trying to go. Unfortunately, fascism does not allow for that, and so I've been really locked into building coalitions that defeat fascism the last 10 years in ways that I hope promote that end game. Right? I was the largest funder of Black organizing in this country for a while. With when it comes to PAC funding. Uh, through Defeat by Tweet and a couple other of my efforts, which I hope not only defeated fascism, but also helped marginalized communities elect the type of people that would allow for more freedom and better social programs, winning DA elections and mayors who appoint police chiefs and sheriffs, and basically trying to address the system of mass incarceration that's often used as like a doom loop to keep marginalized communities in poverty, and to allow us to have a very cheap labor force. So that's been how I've approached this challenge in many ways, is trying to invest in both defeating fascism and the type of political power for marginalized communities that would result in us having a really powerful social safety net. I hate social safety net, actually. I like social springboard. Springboard. Like, you should bounce off of it. We should be in the business of having people bounce off of it and back into being able to pursue whatever they want to pursue and being better community members or entrepreneurs or family members or whatever you need to be in those moments. We used to need everyone participating in society all the time for the most part, right? When we were all farmers and we dealt with drought or famine. That's not where we're at right now. Successful countries, in my opinion, are going to be the ones that produce as many people who can be proactive in those spaces, in all the spaces that matter, whether it's the private sector or whether it's your family or your community, That's going to reduce crime. That's going to reduce bad things. And that's going to elevate people into being able to participate. I've been in Silicon Valley for a long time before this. I was an entrepreneur in Silicon Valley. Everyone I met that was starting things came from like the same tiny sliver of society where they had enough freedom and access to capital to do things. We're using like fucking 2% of our potential entrepreneurs to drive the country forward, 2% of our potential political leaders to drive the country forward because other people can't even think about it. They don't have the time, they don't have the safety, et cetera. And so I think of this less as a moral imperative. I think not that that's not a good argument. I talked to the King family a lot about this when I was running the Drum Major Coalition, which was Martin Luther King's foundation. Uh, I just think the moral imperative is not as good a animator as like a big great experiment, a great society. And so I think you got to be forward facing in building that society. And so that's really what I'm trying to do at the end of the day. And stopping fascism is like an important part of that journey, in my opinion. Let me come back. Hi, gang. I'm happy you like Springboard Tim. uh, thank you, Chris. Where do you see this vision realized in the world? Yeah, what a great question. Excuse me, Chef 29. Where do you see this vision realized in the world? I mean, it's very easy to point to um, the Scandinavian countries. That's usually, I think, where progressives point to, and for good reason. They've just integrated a lot of the necessities of life into the social contract and do really think of themselves um, as being in the business. Their governments are in the business of building great people. I think that's what we should be in the business of is building, great people. There's that great quote from Frederick Douglass that it's easier to build build strong boys than heal broken men. I find that to be really true, especially as I've spent a lot of time in justice reform and I've spent time in prisons. I've spent time in refugee camps, and you come out of those feeling it very hard to hold any of those people accountable for their circumstances and or even the things they've done. You know, I feel like we failed them usually. When I see a problem, I feel like, how did we fail them along the way? And this includes, people who have harmed me. The guy who killed my father was mentally ill. How did we let him go? Whatever it was, 55 years, without addressing that and without ensuring that, we were ahead of that. Um, my uncle was homeless. My uncle who helped raise me after my father was killed, contracted AIDS, the gay man. We were in the San Francisco area, contracted AIDS, and then was addicted to crystal meth and eventually overdosed as he kind of tried to self medicate and then fell victim to uh, addiction. How do we allow that to happen? How do we allow the AIDS community or the AIDS virus to run so wild in Black and gay communities? Right? How do we allow, why don't we have the infrastructure for people dealing with addiction to go somewhere? Do we not experience a massive economic loss when people are dealing with addiction? Do we not, like this stuff earns its cost all the time. If we heal a person, an unhealed person is very expensive to society. And we talk about these social programs, we usually talk about the cost of them as if it's like static, as if it doesn't reduce the cost of all these other bad things that we're having to pay for. And so I think about that a lot. I went to a failing high school. We had a 30% graduation rate. A lot of the kids that I grew up with went to prison. Yeah, I remember there was a day where I sat in county jail visiting my friends, like my good friends. My friend, I mean, I won't give their last name, but my friend Ryan and my friend Damien. I sat still while they rotated to meet with me. Like I sat in the county and was visiting multiple people uh, to meet with me. And these are kids, Damien's dad was in prison growing up. The amount of Black fathers that we've incarcerated and then left young Black men, young Black boys to be raised by themselves or with their mothers while their moms fought poverty, or depending on what era you're in, oftentimes struggle with addiction. Fucking challenging for a lot of people. And so, even people who commit heinous crimes, I really have a hard time holding people accountable because when you rewind the tape not accountable. Accountable is not the right word. Deserving of the type of punishment we dole out. I have a hard time believing people deserve the type of punishment we dole out, and I think we let ourselves off too easy as a society when we look at outcomes. We have this whole personal, uh everyone's kind of an army of one. Their failures are their own, their successes are their own, and, I don't know, I've been able to drift in and out of a lot of different parts of society, and, I think it's a bullshit argument. Mm. Chef 29 said, "I'm so sorry for your loss and the trauma." I think you know what? Honestly, Chef, I like obviously you don't want those things to happen to you, but I found it's like given me really unique ability to connect with almost everyone, which has been real like a superpower in this work in so many ways, right? I also came into a couple $1,000,000 because the guy who killed my father was the wealthiest person ever convicted of murder. So I've also been a rich guy at times, not a billionaire, but whatever. Like I have a stock portfolio. I know how to, invest. It's been able to like help me connect with lots of folks on that side of the aisle too, and or that's that side of society, if you will. And so I was a high school dropout. I was a valedictorian nominee for in college. And so that breadth is like not always fantastic when you're experiencing some of it, but it's been really useful and informative for me, and I think it's been really informative in my belief that I want everyone to have guarantees because I've also been a failure without guarantees and a success with guarantees, and I don't think I'm all that special. Maybe I've been able to have such a long time period where I've had guarantees that I've now I don't know gained experiences that have allowed me to be special in my work or whatnot. But I don't think like by default, that's the way I am, that there's anything that my success is my own. I think I experience guarantees that most people don't experience. And because I've seen myself be a failure in so many ways. And so, and continue at times, but really you just living in different scenarios that have wrapped me in different levels of support, have made me believe in the capacity of everyone. And you see people say, well, do you think it's like intelligence or do you think it's like circumstance? Like intelligence is this inherent binary thing. And I've seen it be bullshit. Like my information retention went up once I had money because it was useful information. Understanding how the stock market worked when I didn't have money didn't mean anything to me. So I didn't retain that information. Understanding political history didn't mean anything when I didn't think I was going to be a political actor. And so, and I think that's within everyone. So when we see the failures of certain people, like we've got to understand everyone's reacting relatively rational to their situation. Drives me nuts when people go, "Why do broke people buy, $200 Jordans? Why don't they invest that money in what? So they can make 10% a year on 200 bucks. So now they have 210 a year from now, and maybe it'll compound at 222 2 years from now. It's way better for that person to have a fucking pair of shoes they like and to walk around in them. There's this like arrogance to how we fucking treat everyone. Most people are reacting rationally to their circumstances. Most people you'll find in like gang violence are not predators. They're reacting fucking defensively. There's a closure rate of, I think, 5% on murders in Chicago. They're not protected by the police department and they're in danger of working with the police department. So most gang activity is about being very rationally protecting yourself in situations where you're in danger. This idea that like there's some moral failure of these people is fucking insane. Anytime you see abusers, almost 100% of them have been abused. This is just like, this is just the case. So we can fucking be mad at these people or we can look at the conveyor belt we're building in society and fix it. Fix the fucking conveyor belt. What product are we building? Um, Sorry, going back to the comments. I should write a book. I don't know. There's so many. Maybe at some point. I don't know. I think maybe like a book's one of those things that's a little bit of a mystery to me. Uh, it's kind of intimidating just because I haven't seen it done. I've had so many friends who wrote books, so maybe I'll spend time on it. I just feel like every time I think about that, I just feel like I'm my time is just better spent being active in this moment. And so I spend most of my time, building shit, but maybe it's helpful, it's helpful for me. I've noticed honestly that it's been helpful even, Miles, I'm very grateful for Miles for sharing this platform with me. Like just having somewhat of a public profile has been helpful in ways that I probably underestimated before because I always thought I could partner my way to those needs as I did with Miles or the Kings or the billionaires or whatnot. Um, but it is useful to kind of have your own brand, your own ideas out there and whatnot. And so I probably do want to invest in that more at some time. It's just figuring out, like, especially the last 10 years, figuring out where that's the best use of my time versus like fucking building something like FAFO, where it's like, all right, well, like let's go win this moment. And so I think it's just a timing thing. But thank you for the encouragement. I really want to. If you see, I'll show you. Here's my vision for what I think that guarantee could look like. I'm just pasting in the chat. Name TBD, but just building some sort of civic program that allows us to have those guarantees is maybe the book on top of and I can weave my personal story in there. I also I don't read biographies. I read like idea books for the most part, and I think there's something the like retconning of everyone's history where they plan this all along. Maybe I should just write a different book. It's kind of like drives me nuts. And uh, I would want it to be. I don't know. Maybe I just don't read enough biographies, and so I'd have to get into that genre, or maybe work in one of my big ideas to like give myself permission to write a more more biographical things. But I appreciate the encouragement. Um, mm, mm, mm. Songbird's mom says, "Maybe you have to do more before you write the book." Maybe. Uh, yeah, this has been fun. I'll say Defiance is probably the most fun I've had on any project, and I've been a part of some really fun projects. Uh, all right, gang. Well, if you have any more questions, great. Otherwise, I will. Uh, Bob says, "Why is it, do you think, that the Fourth Amendment is routinely violated at every airport in this republic?" Um, I don't know. Usually, look, freedom is a great book. Ah, gosh, what was the name of this book? Uh, I can't remember the name of this book. There's a great book that basically said freedom and security or safety are two things everyone wants. It basically every political leader campaigns on, but they're at really intense tension. Like you almost always have to reduce freedom to have more security and reduce security to have more freedom. Um, in a lot of ways, anyways. And so usually when you see an encroachment on freedom or rights, it's got the cover story of security. And this is why you have to be really, really cautious with any politician that really champions a lot of fear tactics, because that's usually what they're creating the cover for. You know, they're creating the cover for uh, more more security that gives them more control over society. Um, and so at airports post 9/11, you had your narrative for why you need a lot more security. And so you see a lot less freedom, protection of personal rights in that venue. And maybe that's going to go down as the memory of 9/11 fades, or as we get better at finding other ways to make sure uh, our airports are secure. Um, all right, gang. I think that's about it. This is fun. I'm going to see you all in like an hour and a half. Sorry about running late to the coffee. I'll just make sure that, whether Miles or I can make it, I'll do a live. Um, I'll do a live with you all so we have some time to chat. And it's been nice sharing, I covered the news with Miles, so it's been nice sharing some of my thoughts with you all. Buzzsaw says, Xander, what do we do if they forcibly steal ballot boxes? Buzzsaw, let me get to that at a future Defiance mission, because we actually have a group called the Freedom Trainers that I brought up earlier that lays out the game plan of exactly what we can do to stop that. And then there's another group on exactly what we do if we do that. So hopefully those are two missions that are coming up for us that deserve a larger answer. And until then, gang, like one thing I'm really trying to do with you all is reinforce that we are a club, and we are a growing club, and a club grows when our members are advocates. And so please keep using your referral code at defiance.news/leaderboard. I'll put the link in here too. Um, and invite friends, like, do it daily, like, make it part of your morning routine. Figure out someone else in your world to send this out to. I'll do it with you all. If you get a text, send it out. I think we're a friendly, easy platform. The ask isn't to become a political radical. It's just to stay informed about what's going on, take some action with us. And so, if you can integrate it into your morning routine or your nighttime routine, whichever one you're more consistent with. I am more consistent with my morning routine, so I put it in there. Uh, yeah, make it a part of it. Own the growth of this club. It's your club, and let's go build it out together. All right, gang. Nice seeing everyone. I'll talk to you in a couple hours. Cheers.